G'day, boys. How you going?
Yeah, good, Chief.
Good afternoon.
Chris, Cam, you good?
Very good.
Excellent.
Well, today we've got someone special, a guest. We don't do this often, but we have Rita Di Nola, Chris's wife, here with us. Welcome, Rita. How you doing?
Thank you. I'm well. Thanks for having me here on the podcast.
Thank you very much for making the time because, I understand it's always about sacrificing a bit of your time and work to be here. So I appreciate you making the time for us.
Thank you.
Okay, boys, let's dig in first because since we have a guest, we're going to have to start with the wine, all right? So
Absolutely.
let's have a look. Which wine have we got today?
Which one do you want to stick with? We've got
Looks like Little Giant. It's not bad.
Shiraz,
That's
Cab.
yeah, that's a cab. We've got 2 Shirazes and a cab.
All right, we're going to start with mine first, John Duval wines. Because we're doing these kind of wine and wisdom podcasts, I've actually got quite a few people now who want to share with me some good wines. And this one was Alexander and Dom, his friend, who tried this before. So I did a little bit of research before I went out there to Dan Murphy to buy this one. It wasn't the bottle I was after, but they ran out of the other bottle, so we're going to have to do it some other time. John Duval now runs his own winery in the Barossa Valley. Between 1986 to 2002, he was actually the chef sommelier for Penfolds, in charge of Grenache.
Oh, wow.
The section for St. Henry, anything that is high-class wine, he was in charge of that. And in 2002, he thought, I need to take on another challenge now. Alex said to me, the Shiraz that they have, which is the entity Shiraz, and they have like different collections, is like out of this world, he says. And actually, his wine's in the top 25 in Australia. This one here is 2017, a blend of Shiraz, Grenache, and Mourvedre. So Shiraz, we all know, but Grenache and Mourvedre are two grapes that are from Spain that should give us a lot of spice in this Shiraz. Okay, so let's try this. First for Rita.
Thank you.
Chriso's finally got someone here who can defend his honour, mate. Brought in the reinforcements.
Oh, mate. It's good to have Boss Lady here, actually. It's,
Hopefully she's got something she believes in and just doesn't sit on a fence
mate,
paling.
she believes she married the right man. That's what she believes, mate.
Oh, that's nice. Cheers, boys.
Cheers.
And lady.
Cheers.
That's nice.
Oh, dear.
That is very nice. Wow.
Looks like John Duval and I, we are going to become good friends.
We've started off strong.
What region is it from, Thomas? What region?
So, Barossa Valley.
Ah.
Okay, so let's dig into this week's discussion. The reason I wanted Rita to be here is, and why don't you just introduce yourself? That'd be easier.
Sure. Thank you. And thanks again for having me here. It's quite unusual to be sitting here and recording a podcast rather than on the other side and listening to you three boys speak. So
Laughing
thank
at
you
all
so
my
much.
jokes.
So with 18 years experience in HR management, I'm currently working for Accor Hotels.
Yeah.
I've been in the role for 8 months, previous experience in hospitality and also in the tertiary education sector.
Right.
Human resources.
Okay. So tell me, how is it going over there?
Very interesting times indeed.
Yeah.
March with COVID.
Yep.
We've had a lot of change. You know, with me and my role, first and foremost, I've had to reduce days.
Right.
So the exec team have reduced days. We've had to have a look at our workforce.
Yep.
And determine how best to move forward with COVID. We currently have a number of staff stood down. As you probably know, in the hospitality industry, we have a lot of employees who are on visas.
Yes.
For those employees, they don't receive JobKeeper nor JobSeeker. So they're in a very difficult financial situation.
What's the percentage of staff you let go?
So right now we have let go of about 30% of our staff, mainly casuals.
Wow.
Those that have been employed for less than a year, gone.
Okay, gone or they on standby somewhere waiting for you to call them back?
Gone. So this is the group that were let go.
Okay, so it means that when you guys are about to start, it's going to be a full interview and introductory sessions with people.
We do
again,
have
then?
a group on stand down.
Oh, I see.
Yes, and we have already had a number of staff come back on reduced hours and days, which is great to hear. We still have about 25% to 30% of our team stood down.
Okay.
What does that equate to in numbers, as in individuals?
Numbers. So right now we have about 60
Yeah, wow.
across the precinct that are still stood down.
So when you say across the precinct, that's 3 hotels.
Correct. So
That's a total
Pullman,
of how many rooms?
So Pullman, Ibis and the Novotel, and it's a total of 765 rooms.
Okay, and out of that, at a full time, what would you be carrying staff wise? If it was full capacity, what would staff be?
Yep, 260.
Okay,
So we started with 260.
And at the moment, what's currently employed at the moment?
Currently employed at the moment, we're sitting on just under 100.
Okay, so way less than half of your staff have either been stood down altogether or on JobKeeper or whichever way you want to look at it.
Yep, stood down without any JobKeeper, right? So under the Fair Work Act.
And from what I understand, the hotels themselves have also adjusted the way they're doing things. So they've combined the staff. Do you want to tell us a bit how they do
No, we're going too fast.
Okay, sorry.
We're going too fast.
Okay.
So you want to take us through that day, the decisions, the emotions in the people? Because I think that these are the things that people need to really get. From the outside, we did a podcast on that day. Cam and I, we walked around some restaurant. We saw people being put out. In a show that is as large as this, what happened? How distraught were they?
Look, I think we were fortunate that there was a lot of pre-planning that went on before the day, and we have a really wonderful culture with our people at Accor. So sitting down on that day was so difficult, and you never know what you're going to get. You never know what the other person's reaction is going to be.
Right.
And I think the more humble, sincere and honest you can be when you have that really difficult conversation with someone, not so much the better they're going to take it, the more sincere they're going to be with you, right? And the more appreciative they're going to be of hearing the truth and not beating around what needs to be said. Yep. So we had 3 difficult days in a row. It took us 3 days to get through the cohort that we had to stand down.
How much notice did you have as employers? Because the day Thomas and I were walking around, those guys had only had 24 hours. The government came out on the Sunday and said you're gone by Monday at midday. So did you guys have a couple of weeks before you didn't have to chop within that 24 hours?
We did have a couple of weeks, yes, and that first round of discussions was consultation. It wasn't decision, it was consultation. This is what we potentially will be doing.
Oh, so it wasn't the government telling you, it was you guys had already preempted that it was going to happen?
No, this was as a result of the government's first announcement, and that was that food and beverage outlets would be closed.
Yes. Bars
would be closed. And that pretty much closed all of our food and beverage operation.
Oh, so that's when you sat down with them first, and
right.
They were laid off 2 weeks after.
Correct.
Okay, so a lot of places that happened the same day. Remember, mate, when we went around midday? Yeah.
So how did you handle that 2 or 3 weeks? Because I know we had the same thing where announcement had been made, but we didn't know what it meant for the business at that stage. And there was talk of JobKeeper and all that stuff going around, but we had 3 weeks where us and the staff really had no clue what it was going to look like, and I'm sure you guys were in the similar position.
Exactly the same.
How did you handle those conversations? Because there's nothing worse as an owner and an employer and as a manager, people coming to you with questions and having no answer for them.
Exactly.
I know it was really hard for us.
Yeah.
I took it quite personally, but how did you guys?
And I think first and foremost, we sat down and talked about open communication with the team. We know it's very unsettling to hear what we've heard from the government. We know there's going to be some impacts. We're working through what they may be. And when we know, we will sit down with you and have a chat. So we had an open town hall. Myself and the GM sat at the front with the team. The team was invited. We had 2 sessions, a morning session, afternoon session. Yeah. We opened up with talking about the business, the government, COVID, where we're at. What does that mean for us? We don't have answers right now. There are going to be some changes. And then we opened it up to the floor for questions and feedback.
Okay.
How was that
very
taken
vulnerable,
as a whole?
Very vulnerable position to be put in, and allow your team to open up and share how they're feeling and any questions right at the start of a pandemic when really we all didn't know what was going to come of this.
Had you ever been in a position before where you'd had to consider mass layoffs and had to give that chat? Is that something you were experienced in, or is it a first-timer?
Not to this degree.
Yeah. I think it's part of the problem with a lot of people. We're all sort of virgins in that.
And it's also happening a la minute. We really don't know what's going to happen next. And there have been so many changes that have occurred since that initial COVID-19 announcement, right?
Sometimes the amount of change that's happened and at one stage it was on a daily basis. We'd have announcement after announcement. It almost stops you wanting not to communicate or be open and transparent, but it was hard to be in a situation where what you said on Tuesday didn't mean shit on a Wednesday because everything had changed again.
Right.
So sometimes you sit there and go, oh, maybe we shouldn't talk about that just yet because it may change tomorrow, but we're all feeling the same panic, staff and employers at the same time. So, it was a
and I think the difficulty when things are happening so fast-paced is that we need to take a breath and think about what's happening. Take the time. Don't make rash decisions and don't have quick conversations with people that are not thought of and pre-prepped and understood.
Yeah, which was very hard to do when everything was changing on a daily basis.
And people are panicking.
Yeah, we didn't
so
make
they're
any
coming
decisions.
to us with that panic and asking critical questions of us at a time when if we haven't pre-prepped and we're planned and we know what we need to communicate, it's best not to communicate about it at that time. So I had a lot of conversations with staff around right now, we don't have the answers. We don't have the answers. We are looking to get some further information and come back to you. And when we do have answers, we will be communicating further with you. But these are all great questions. And we would note the questions with our teams.
Right. Those decisions on, staff to stand down, who you're letting go and so forth, they weren't made overnight. You took your time. But were they led by by the sites individually, or were you led by head office? I believe it's in France, is that right? So were you led by head office and then they were delivering that to the world? What was the process on that sort of decision making?
So we were led by our CEO in Australia, New Zealand, so based here in Australia, and our corporate team, which is a regional team, actually consulted with each of the individual businesses. So for our precinct, we were able to put forward our workforce planning and our strategy and who it would affect, right? Because initially it was pretty straightforward. It was the food and beverage. Anybody that worked in food and beverage could legally be stood down based on the restrictions provided by the government. So we enacted the stood down measures under the Fair Work Act at that time. That was stage one for us.
Yeah, right.
What about negativity? Did you have any backlash? People angry, people making threats? Because obviously they knew your email, they knew how to get to you too. Did you?
Yeah, I think you are in shock. You are feeling uncertain. And I think first and foremost, as a leader of the department and the precinct in HR, I had to get my shit together quite quickly. Right? Before you could even communicate with people, because people can feel it. If you're unsteady, if you're not sure, if you're not quite clear, they get that tone and that feeling from you straight away. So I had to make sure that, one, I was across what I was communicating, that we were working as a team with the executive team. So we would have regular meetings where we would talk about what are the questions coming from staff, how are we going to answer them in unison. We all need to now band together closer than we ever did. Did I get any backlash from the team? Look, fear. I didn't really get any threats or anything like that, Thomas.
Okay.
Again, the culture is just so lovely. I think, if anything, being new in my position when it all went down, I'd started in October with Accor, and this all went down in late March. Yeah. Still didn't know the entire team. For a lot of the team, I was still developing connection and rapport. So I had to develop connection and rapport while delivering and having really tough conversations with people about their livelihood.
Yeah. And the hotel, in terms of vacancy, how low did it go?
No vacancies. No, all the vacancies were closed out when COVID hit.
Right.
So we were no longer recruiting at all. It was all about filling any essential positions with our in-house people.
As far as guests
at
the hotel.
The rooms, vacancy
yes.
in the rooms.
Okay. So
probably easier to talk about occupancy. Yeah.
Occupancy at the hotel.
I'm sorry, we're not.
Yes.
We're real estate.
I'm privy to the inside talk, mate. So
That's good.
Yes, occupancy hit rock bottom.
I believe it went down to like 4 or 5% at some stages.
That's right. And look, we are a precinct at Sydney Olympic Park that relies on events and concerts. The last concert at Sydney Olympic Park was Elton John. So since then, with COVID and the borders closing, we're in a position where we are entertaining now patrons in our restaurant at Pullman But without an occupancy and without being able to forecast an occupancy based on events and concerts, we're really struggling to foresee that occupancy coming in. So we had a really high week last week. We had an NRL team in.
Yep.
We had an AFL team in, Collingwood. And we also had Warner Brothers do some filming for The Bachelor. But, you know, again, this wasn't, this wasn't,
Collingwood
you know,
or The
this
Bachelor?
wasn't pre-scheduled a few months ago when we were planning for this occupancy. This is last minute. We're now operating last minute mode.
But can I ask you, what I was saying before is that you've reduced the 3 hotels to 1 hotel. Is that still the case?
So we have all 3 hotels open
Yep.
and operational. We are at the moment upgrading our guests from Novotel and Ibis over to the Pullman while the occupancy remains low.
Which is a smart business move, obviously, because your staff is centrally located at the 1 hotel.
Exactly.
That's
So
fantastic.
that will predict the labour force as well.
Can you tell us a little bit about within the culture of Accor, which is the group? They have I believe you actually had to go to training for a cultural alignment thing for them, which sort of leads into how they care for their staff. Do you want to share us the name and so forth with that?
Yeah. I've never experienced anything like it in my HR career or even my working career. They have an amazing culture and values program called Hardest. And on your first day, you're required to attend Hardest. It's a full day, and it is a program that talks about the history of Accor and the business. It talks about the values of Accor, and then 4 key areas that are paramount to us as employees of Accor. The first one being around belonging and how we create belonging with our people. The second one around stories and building great connection through stories with our people, and people meaning our guests and also our fellow colleagues. The third being we all make mistakes. How do we turn around a mistake with someone?
Speak for yourself, mate.
We'll talk more about that, Cam. And the fourth around our values and our guest service with our teams. So it's really powerful. It was a big group when I did my culture and values training. In the room, there would have been 60 other staff in the team from around the Australian hotels, and we got to know people on a very one-on-one level, connected, hear their stories, and you walk out feeling like you've met your new family.
Yeah.
It's a lovely feeling. From there, being one of the executives and the lead in HR, I need to find a way to embrace and make that culture and values my own, because I am then leading that culture with our teams in the precinct.
So you've got, when let go and stood down, there's 160 odd people. Is there any program in place to keep contact with the people who have stood
there
down?
certainly is.
What are you doing around that?
Look, I call it a welfare type of program. Each week, managers are required to contact their teams and have a welfare check in on how they're going, provide a business update in the department, and make sure that the team feel that they're still valued, part of our team. Although they're stood down, they're still our employees. I also each week call a department, a team. I'm very fortunate. I've started a staff newsletter. It was all centred around the personal stories of our teams. So, and I think at this time that is so critical. It's so critical to engage with our teams on a much deeper level. And I'll talk about why as we go through the podcast. But, stories like share your pet story, share your favourite recipe, share your hobby, share your greatest adventure. One that I really like, share your childhood story. Go to your photo album and pick a photo from when you were a child and tell us about that story and why it's special to you. And there are so many photos in our photo albums. To be able to do that and hear someone's special story is amazing.
So with them stood down without pay, are they eligible for job seeker at all? Are they getting any?
So those without pay, predominantly those on a visa. Accor has developed a really special fund called a Hardest Fund. The owner over in Paris, Sebastian Bazin, has actually spoken to shareholders, and they've agreed to put together a fund of $70 million to help employees who are suffering from hardship in terms of shelter, food, or financial hardship. And so we have, this fund has now been going for about 6 weeks. We have been on connecting with our people, asking them, how do you ask someone, how are you doing financially? Do you have kids? Do you need some help? Are you able to eat? Can you buy groceries? Where are you living? And these are people predominantly who are on a visa who usually travel to Australia alone without their families. And so we've been fortunate to lodge a number of applications for the Hardest Fund for our people, and that's so touching. It's so moving when someone shares with you their rawness, their vulnerabilities, and we're able to help them. And I along with the executive team, feel that we have now developed such bonds with our people. Who'd have thought in amidst this COVID-19 pandemic, what I can say is an amazing opportunity that's come from it is getting to know people.
That's
back to
nice.
basics.
She's actually more eloquent than the three of us.
Yeah, I knew
very
that. I
sorry.
could have told you that.
I'm very
Make us-
sorry, boys. She's not material for wine and wisdom.
More wisdom and wisdom.
Yeah. Listen, I just also want to ask you, now, a few weeks into COVID, the government's now decided that we're going to quarantine people flying back. So obviously, again, your hotels now could be involved, because first they were going to do the city ones before they did yours. Did you have to recall staff? Did you have to prepare things? What's going on?
Gee, let me tell you, there's a story there, Thomas. So when we heard there were going to be quarantine guests, we didn't receive a lot of notice. And, this goes back to notice, Cameron. We were told the night before, it was a Friday night. I'm in the office on Saturday doing some critical work. We're all rounded up, regardless of whether you're operational or not. We're rounded up. And there we were, getting the hotel, Novotel and Ibis, back to operation along with Pullman. And I was saying to Chris, my job, and
Where was Chris?
he's
He was
laughing.
drunk on the couch somewhere.
He's laughing. My job
where this is
was
going.
to go into every room with the tiniest screwdriver and open up the back of remote controls and put the batteries back in the cover, and then screw in these tiny little screws back into the back of the remotes.
Wow.
So that was job number one, critical. Get the rooms back up and operational. Remotes back open.
Yeah.
The minibars repacked. The fridges switched on. Like, we had powered down the hotel to save on costs, right? Utilities. We've had to power it back up. Wow. So no, we didn't get the first round of ISO guests. So now we potentially, with Victoria and the outbreak, we might see some ISO guests. We're ready. We are ready to go.
The remotes will be fully operational, is it? People will be able to watch TV.
Let me tell you, I look at remotes very differently these days. I go straight to the screws.
Oh, well, what do you think of the wine, boys?
It's unbelievable.
And lady, I'm sorry. How
It's
good?
unbelievable. Oh,
It's nicely
bit of that
structured,
cheddar.
isn't it? It's got structure. It's got
Very smooth.
yeah,
it's
mine's going to be let down.
No, but this is a conversation I had with you when you drove me here. We try to have at least some kind of healthy competition, because I think to do the best we can and go out there and do research, like I researched this company and this guy last night before I went to Hornsby today, because I had a meeting this morning in Hornsby. So I thought, I'm going to go to Dan Murphy, but I knew exactly what I was after. And it's important. One of the things that we are looking at doing now, and we talked about it, is for our own health. We probably are going to change Wine and Wisdom, one bottle each, to now, each time that we do it, it's $100 bottle, but it's one bottle.
One bottle.
So which means that we actually get to taste some good bottles, and if we keep building on this, maybe we'll get to a Grange bottle at some stage. That would be nice, wouldn't it? I love doing this kind of research, and people who are like this are special people we have to get to know and share with people. John Duval, his son now is in the business. There's no doubt about him. Whatever he's doing, from a smallest bottle, even a white, it's everything structured. Everything has got techniques.
Yeah, highly skilled.
Yeah.
Love it.
It is a good wine.
But we're not running a sustainable business model here, guys, drinking 3 bottles of wine every
But you're right. I think both our bottles are going to be a letdown after this one. It's good to start. It's funny, Thomas, you were telling us the other day that in France they start with the worst wine and finish with the best. Is that right?
No, they go with the dish.
Oh, okay. Where did you say they start
So
with the
they go
worst?
with the dish, and
Nice.
and quite often because the best dish is right at the end, the best bottles
bottle
come
ends
out. You know that's what it is, and so you have to be able to control yourself until the end. You have to know how to.
Every bottle's the best at the end.
Well, that's over here, but not when you're over there.
Go the best stuff first.
So let's keep on going here now. Now we're having another issue. Apparently, people don't want to go back to work.
Yes.
Apparently, the JobKeeper is so good that some people are saying, "I don't want to go back to work. I'd rather be on that thing, and I'd rather have the government pay me for me not to work." Do you find that? Are you starting to now recall people, and do you hear of your people saying, "No, I'd rather not come. I'd rather have another few weeks off"?
A very, very interesting question, Thomas.
Right.
And there's a mixture of responses we're receiving. So we have actually opened up our housekeeping roles to other areas of the business. So we've asked our food and beverage and our front office to consider coming back in housekeeping. Now, they're not trained in housekeeping. They've never done housekeeping before. So this is in a different area of the business. Can you force someone to come back to a different role without experience and skill? No. So we have had a few staff that have said, one staff member said, "Look, I think I need to speak to my parents about this opportunity and come back to you," and has come back no. The other has come back and said, "No, I really don't want to work in housekeeping, so no, I'm not going to come back." So that's one scenario. It's understandable.
So that's a scenario where
One
they don't want to
scenario.
downgrade in terms of duties.
Well, changed.
Well,
They want
a
to be
change.
general manager.
It's a change, right? Well, they're in food and beverage or
Right.
they're in front office, right? And
Yeah.
this is all we have available for you at this time.
Yep.
And we explain to them, we don't know when or if there'll be some hours for you.
So ideally, they want to be unemployed rather than come down and change sheets and clean rooms.
They're not unemployed
Are
though,
the
Chris.
people? Are
What
the
are they?
people?
They're still employed.
Are they on JobKeeper?
They're on JobKeeper
Okay,
or they're stood down without pay, right?
So these
So
ones
is
that
anyone
employed.
someone that stood down without pay, are they refusing to come back, or is it the people on JobKeeper?
Well, it's interesting. Let's go to the other scenario. We're going to ring our staff to come back to the roles that they usually do. Okay, and that's
Yep.
predominantly happened in food and beverage, right? So we've called our staff, come back. These are the shifts available. You won't be receiving the shifts you had before. You were full-time? Great. Right now we only have 2 shifts available and there's no guarantee you'll receive those 2 shifts each week. We only have those 2 shifts available at this time in this following week. So this is your consult. Would you like to come back or not? I've had staff who have said, "Yep, great, I'm coming back." I've had others say to me, "Oh, I don't know. What happens if I don't come back, Rita?" I said, there are a number of staff stood down just like you. There may not be another opportunity for you to come back to our meaningful roster.
Yeah, but are they getting JobKeeper?
Some are getting
That's
JobKeeper, yes.
That's the question. That's
Yes. And so
Well-
I've also had the question, well, I'm on JobKeeper. I actually still get paid to stay at home. Why should I come back?
which is where we're heading.
Okay, so let me answer that,
That was
question.
I mean,
That's
some
a-
are
Why
say-
should I come back?
Some are saying, "I don't want to come back. I got a job with Wiseberry. I'm going to be in sales now, become a zillionaire." So that's another thing you probably didn't know, but we wanted to let you know first.
So I put a post on the page the other day. It was a headline from the Australian, and it was one of the rare times recently that we've read a newspaper headline that actually made a little bit of sense.
yeah, that's
And
true.
only through personal experience. We were recruiting very heavily prior to March, or we were recruiting very heavily into the first week of March, and we had a job ad on Seek that had 195 applications
That's incredible. How long was that ad running for, Cam?
a month.
So in a month, you had 194 applications.
I reckon most of them within 2 weeks. We got
Wow.
absolutely
Yeah, but hold
smashed.
on.
Hang on.
119 applicants, but how many actually
195?
had the experience
Yeah,
and the
that's not the-
skills?
that's
Yeah,
not
that's
the
not
point.
the point, though. We had
Just
people
hang on.
looking for a job.
Just wait. I know you want to rebut me, so just wait. Okay, let me get my
She
point
is a
out.
Di Nola, mate. She's a Di
Yeah,
Nola,
that's
you
all right.
remember.
I look forward to talking to a Di Nola who's got a passionate stance about something.
Shut up.
So this time round,
He's on now. He's on.
with the world coming,
we haven't finished the first.
with the
bottle.
world coming to an end and unemployment getting to all-time highs and the recession that we're going to go into, we put a job ad out because we're ready to go back to full-time work. 8 applications. So what are we talking difference there? 187 difference.
5%.
I had to make, we've spoken about this in the podcast. We had to make the agonising decision in our business because we didn't qualify for JobKeeper to reduce hours of some of the staff and reduce wages to go along with it. But we were very proud at the time of the fact that we were able to do it in such a way that even though we weren't getting JobKeeper, they were eligible for some government assistance, which meant that their loss in wage was minimal. Where we're in a situation where we've said, righto guys, we need you to come back full time. 1 person have and 2 have flat out refused. One of those people is no longer with the business, said, I'm not coming back to do the same role. Unless you're going to change my role, I'm not coming back.
Change it to what?
I'm not coming back to Prospect was the, you're employed to Prospect.
That's your job.
So here we are, and I shed tears and there was a few people around me at that time we were making that decision. That hammered me for a couple of weeks.
We were part of that. We saw it, yeah.
Having to do that to the staff. And then we say, righto guys, great news. Not only have we survived this shit and been able to keep the doors open, not only have you guys been able to keep food on the table and keep paying your bills, but business is going strong. Let's get back into it. Here's your full wage back. About that. No, because I've been able to sit at home and do 15 hours a week work and get paid the same money. So then couple that with 8 applications out instead of 200 and then a headline on the Australian that says, are people choosing the dole over work? Mate,
it's not looking good, right?
It was something that I didn't think had happened. My business partner said to me, when we get people to reduce their hours, make sure the bit of paper says when you're required to come back full time, you have to come back full time. And I said to him, mate, don't worry about it, mate. They'll do that. We don't have those type of people in our business. Well,
Surprise.
And I'll guarantee it's happening everywhere. People who can get to sit at home for $750 a week at the moment. I don't know whether it's location-wise or demographic-wise of the community as a whole, but
maybe he's the leader.
Yeah, could possibly be the leader. But that's a subject for a different day.
That's true.
And the problems we're having, we're talking to people who are advising us on what we can do in certain situations. They said, guys, join the queue. It is happening everywhere.
Yeah.
And then you think, is it happening everywhere? And then you read that people are seeing an 80% decrease in job applicants. You've got to start joining the dots. And if the government's handing a lot of people out money to stay at home and not work and keep their job, there's been no protection put in place for employers in that scenario. There's no leg to stand on with someone refusing to come back to work, as we've found. So, are people choosing the dole instead of work? Rita, you're talking about people who are on visas who aren't eligible for any government assistance.
That's right.
Right? So I'm not going there. That's not... I'm talking about people who, the employers have had to go through the ringer of shit. We're going to have to take food off these people's table and it's horrible, and then offer them full-time employment back. No, the beach is cool, even though it's winter.
Yeah, it's tough. So how do you rationalise with an employee to come back to work? One of the things we say to our staff is it is actually valuable to you to be on the meaningful roster. Because it is
meaningful.
It is
they've got all the good words, man.
It is a very streamlined
Since when a
roster
roster is meaningful?
Once you're on the roster, you have the prospect of gaining further shifts. There's no guarantee, but you have that opportunity. Also, you are paid superannuation when you're at work. There's no super when you're at home on JobKeeper.
We're offering people their full rollback though. There's no, you're on a meaningful roster and you may be looked at in the future to go back to your full job.
Yes.
Here's the job you were doing 2.5 months ago.
And here are some critical points of understanding of your people that you would never, probably ever, have been exposed to outside of the situation that we're in, right?
Showing people's true colours is what you're saying,
showing true colours and really getting an understanding of their level of integrity and respect, work ethic, right? And true meaning, right? There are different reasons for people not coming back to work, right?
So those people on the meaningful roster would have all those characteristics, right?
Well, they're back.
Right.
They're back. And they're not, and you know what we've done with our meaningful roster?
They weren't getting paid.
Oh, no, a lot of them were still receiving JobKeeper, right? They were still receiving JobKeeper. But what we've said to these people is you're coming back, the world has changed. The world at work has changed.
Yeah.
When you come back to work in front office, get ready, you will be doing in-room service. You will be doing food and beverage if help's required over in food and beverage.
Mate, we had someone bring their work contract into work and go, this is what you employed me for. And not only had they done everything on that list in their job description, they couldn't find the part in the contract that said worldwide pandemic, everything's going to change, but wanted a complete, and just flat out refused. If you're still going to make me do the job you employed me for, I'm not coming back to work.
Yeah, very difficult. Very difficult.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I personally think it's a great thing because when COVID's going to finish, hopefully it's not the swine flu now because apparently that's a new thing.
G4.
And hopefully there's nothing else. I would love to have, because these people here, when you put a tattoo on yourself, it's for life, unless you scrape it against some wall, like something like 12 feet up there. Otherwise, it's for life. I
Thomas
reckon
is referring to our friend Cameron.
Tattoo removal program. Drink 42 bintangs and jump off a 16-foot wall. The tattoos aren't
Too
for
much
life, son.
information, Cam. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, anyway.
I would love to be interviewing these people in the future and ask them, what did you do during COVID? Oh, well, you know, I got offered to come back full time, but I refused. Oh, really? Because that kind of tattoo wouldn't go away. That tells me straight away the value of that person. The value of that person is laziness, themselves, and has no sense of meaningful hardest work. All right? I think it's fantastic because these kind of tattoo, you can see it. Even if they're lying to you, look at them in their face, their eyes going to blink for half a second, you know they're lying. Okay? And so it's fantastic thing. Let these guys be tattooed because when they're going to find out that there's no advancement into a bigger league, that now you may have to go into really way lower league than what you used to have, it's all you're doing. So let's not be sad about it.
Yeah, not sad. It's just
And you-
The
analysing
cream always
behaviour.
rises to the top, right?
We're analysing that behaviour. So do we think that's a problem as a whole? If
You know,
what
the-
I've experienced with job applications is in a macro sense across the whole state or country, because that's what the article was saying, it's everywhere, is it because the government's paying people too much
On
money?
the onset of JobKeeper, JobSeeker, the government actually stated that they were worried about having people long-term unemployment or being on benefits for too long, because it then does compound the fact of that laziness, for want of a better word, factor. So it is going to continue. I think, as we said, those who want to work will reach out, seek, and go to work regardless of their situation. And those who want to take advantage of the situation will. I went to a listing appointment last week. The son was at home, showed us through the house before the mum was available. Mum come home. I was having a chat with him. He was on JobSeeker. I said, so what do you have to do while you're on JobSeeker? Nothing. I go, do you have to go for interviews? He goes, no, we get one phone call every month for about a minute, maybe 2 minutes. Once that phone call's over, you've met your requirements because they're just finding out what you're doing to find work, and that's it. I said, so are you looking for work? He goes, no. I said, so what do you want to do? He goes, I don't know. And that is going to be, I think, a long sort of long-winded effect from what's happened with offering all these handouts.
I think you kind of look forward to the Thomas, that question just posed when you're interviewing though. So what did you do for the last
That's
3 months?
exactly right.
Just
mate.
watch. That'd be the first thing you ask, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Well, do you do that in a phone interview, or do you let them come in to ask them?
Let them come in because I think the face won't lie. And you'll pick
That's
it up,
right.
you know. And this is where it's so stupid from these people because they look for short term. Now, to answer your question about JobKeeper, I personally think that the government said it will be for a period of 6 months, which means in 2 months, stop it. Because then we're going to have an influx of those guys looking for a job again, right? You have now the scaremonger who are saying, well, you know, if you stop, it's going to crash because we have this, we have... No, it's not going to crash. And if it's crashing, it's fantastic.
Yep.
I always... because it's probably the law of the fittest.
Survival of the
Yes, you have to
Natural selection.
understand there's too many little businesses that are, first of all, not paying tax, who, by the way, you just got conned into JobKeeper because now with JobKeeper, the taxation office knows your number. And so they're going to look at all this. But let's have a look at, it's not just the employees, guys. I know we always look at the employees, but what about the employers? The number of employers who have actually put their staff on JobKeeper, asked them to work full time, just on JobKeeper money. That's also happening.
Yep. Well, that's wrong.
So it's not every day that you see a business like yours where you work for, there's values and there's enormous. I mean, you said the 4 pillars.
Yeah.
But what are the top values that Accor lives by?
Yeah, so respect,
Right?
trust,
Yep.
guest service.
But guest service is one of the 4 pillars that you
Yes,
have, isn't it?
so guest service is also value,
Wow. Okay.
loyalty.
That's a good question. I didn't know that. That's a good question.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
They're
And,
hiring, mate, I've heard.
I
Housekeeping.
see it all the time. I see it day in and day out from our regional office
yeah.
and from my colleagues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's nice. Hey, what about opening the next bottle, man?
Another bottle.
What's
another
going
bottle.
on?
Right, which one are we going to go for?
Have to
What
stay
have we
on the
got
Shiraz
there?
with me.
Yeah, we have to.
Go the Shiraz. We're going to keep on the Shiraz. This is Big Cam,
He's got his bottles
Cam.
in the back there.
Big Red Dog.
So this is, I'm not going to lie, I picked this one completely on the label because it's one of the coolest bottles I've seen in a long, long time. It's called Take It to the Grave, and on the label is a skeleton playing a golden guitar with a sombrero on, and even the lid's got some artwork around it. So when I was, so I got a bit of a skull fetish. I got, skulls used to be my thing. An ill-fated tattoo as well.
So it's the visual appearance.
Yeah, well, we've
That's
spoken
stuck to you.
before and tried to give some tips once on how to pick a good wine. And for people who know what they're doing, you start with the year and then work your way out. But sometimes the best thing you can do is just scan the shelves for
Any, meeny, miny, mo.
No, it's not any, many more. Find something that catches your eye.
Yep, which I did today. We'll go to that.
I looked past all the standards and the skeleton popped out to me and I thought, let's have a look at that. So it's a 2018 Shiraz. It's from the Langhorne Creek region of the Barossa Valley. Langhorne Creek is best known for its Shirazes and Malbecs. Mm-hmm. And the Barossa Valley is obviously very well known for its wines. I think we've gone 3 from the Barossa Valley today, have we?
No, the other one was
Didn't you?
Coonawarra.
yeah, Coonawarra.
Coonawarra.
So we've got 2 at Coonawarra, 1 at Barossa. And Barossa is where?
South Australia. Yeah, you nearly had me there, mate. Don't ask me where Langhorne Creek is. It's in the Barossa Valley. So we'll give it a crack. It's going to be hit and miss. It was $18, so it's not going to break the bank. And then my wife rang me and told me I could have got it for $13 from Dan Murphy's.
I should have got another John Duval.
I got a bit worried when we started with Thomas's first because I thought,
It's got a lot to live up
put
to.
mine under the pump, but we'll give it a crack, see what happens.
All right, let's try this.
You have to scull yours, Rita.
Oh, I'm going to skip this. Oh, actually, just a little
You
taste.
have
don't
to
get
try.
to skip.
You have to try a
Sorry,
little bit.
mate.
Doesn't have to be a full glass. You just have to try a little bit. I have no problem.
I've got a show for today, mate. So you just,
Lucky you.
I do. Lucky me. Lucky me.
I knew there was a reason.
Listen, I've got quite a few people who want to come onto Wine and Wisdom. They're starting to queue up and ask for appearance. I don't know, boys. Maybe we should start charging a fee to come over here and drink and eat
bring
for
the
free.
$100 bottle. That works out well.
You've took the words out of my mouth, mate. That sounds like a sterling idea.
Let's try this wine.
Let's try this.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Salute.
It's not bad.
It's light, nice light. It's very drinkable. Not as good as the last one, but
punchy.
nice.
Yeah, not as structured.
No.
Punchy, it just hits
Young.
you
It's
quite
you can
hard.
taste it's young, but it's nice. It's nice.
It's nice.
Easy to drink.
It's not a complete fail.
For
No, it's a
$1.80, I think that's a great wine.
Well, but you like that label there? Look at that.
It is a cool label.
The label was probably $1.50.
I wanted to ask Rita. I wanted to ask her about just going back to what you were doing for the employees. Isn't that the Accor set up a hotline? Is that right? Accor had a hotline for if they're having issues mentally or they having problems handling things. Is that right?
We are affiliated with an EAP program, Employee Assistance Program,
Right.
where you can ring that hotline and get assistance. We also had our regional team available for any questions that people had.
But if someone is having a problem like depression or whatever during this time, wasn't there a hotline they were all given that they could ring for assistance as well?
So the hotline was connected to the executive team,
Right.
their managers, plus the EAP program.
Okay.
Yeah, the external EAP
And
program.
you talk about the executive team all the time, and you talk about all the employees that were stood down. We know that the government has made half of Australia unemployed, but no one has either taken a job cut or a pay cut. What's happened with the executive team in Accor?
Our executive team.
Yeah.
So we've all had reduced hours.
Yep.
So we're all working reduced hours. Initially, we were asked to use our annual leave. And I think for a lot of businesses, they tried that first off. Before the restrictions were put in place for food and beverage, we already could foresee a very low occupancy. So we had placed all of our staff on variation contracts initially. And for the executive team, we all had to accept a variation contract as well. So, it's lead by example, right, Thomas? If it's okay.
We follow the politicians.
If we're going to have the hard discussions with our team, we want to know that we're leading the way, and we've taken a bit of a cut too. And I tell you, when you're having a difficult conversation with someone and able to say, I too have had my hours cut, I too have taken my annual leave, gee, it really sounds and looks and feels like we're in it together.
It's authentic.
Listen, mate, before you go off onto the politicians, I'm sorry, I disagree with you. Rita is right. The politicians are also having their hours cut. They're working less.
I wanted to know about their pay. Yeah, I noticed. I was about to say to Rita, I know your hours have been cut, but has the pay packet matched the hours? Because we know our politicians are doing...
Sacrilege! You don't talk about pay.
We talk about anything.
Sacrilege!
No, I'm only joking with that question, by the way. You politicians, you bastards.
So I've got a bit of inside information on that too. So, however, moving forward, what is sort of Accor's plan now to sort of help people get back into that method of
working on the meaningful roster.
Meaningful.
The meaningful roster. Well, we have all prepared across every precinct a new world plan. And our new world plan really...
This sounds like world dominance, but anyway.
Really is about what does the new world of our operation and our labour force look like coming out of COVID-19. We know that it is going to be a very different world. Right now, we know that we need multi-skilling across different roles. We know we need to care for our people and connect with our people on a completely different level, whether they're stood down and when they come back to work. In fact, when our employees come back to work, they are different people.
If they come back to work.
We don't know what they've suffered, Cam. We don't know the financial hardship. We don't know what their family's gone through, right?
Yeah, those people who want to come back, they'll come back, and you'll do all that, and you'll help them, and you'll reach out to the ones who maybe want to come back and you don't have jobs for. What's Accor now going to do to fill the roles that you can't fill?
When they don't come back.
Yep.
See, I take, because it's my job on here to play devil's advocate.
Yeah.
If someone rings me and says, if you ever want to be part of the meaningful roster again, you'll come back to work, I'd just be like, are you threatening me? I'll take my $750 to stay at home. You can stick your meaningful roster until the government stops paying me.
No, and I would say I'm not threatening you. I'm giving you all the information you need to know so you can make an educated decision on whether you want to come back or not right now.
But that's, we're going to come across it.
But is the company going to lay them off?
I wish I had that answer right now, Thomas. Okay. I mean, we are very fortunate.
I mean, if you have someone like refusing shift, surely you have to put them in a different basket.
Well, right now, we know who's on the meaningful roster and who's come back and those that have not come back. Mm-hmm. Whether there is any work for them now or into the future remains to be seen,
I just want to ask you, because I know that your company has put a $70 million into the hardest fund, but wouldn't that have been better maybe for some Pullman or some Accor hotels to maybe keep a hotel for those people who were here and not meeting the job seeker, maybe in a room, and for them to keep on, and for them to keep on working and keep the hotel going? And wouldn't that be the $70 million better spent?
It's interesting you say that, because we have had those conversations with those that are suffering hardship.
Right.
Do they need accommodation? If they need accommodation, I can only speak for our precinct. Yes, we would give them a room if that would help them out. Mm-hmm. Right, I can't speak on behalf of the company.
Right, I understand. But that's very good for anyone who works for Accor right now listening to this. You have a free room. Actually, I would like a job at Accor.
So Cam,
Let's go back to the bosses for a second.
Right, I'm going to do that. I'm going to spin that on your head.
Yeah,
I'm going to spin it on its head. No, hang on for a second.
Right. No,
I'm going to ask you this. Now, you own your own show, right?
Yes, mate.
So let's say you've got 10 staff that are out there waiting to come back. 5 do, 5 don't. 5 say, I'll do whatever hours you give me, I'll do whatever hours you don't give me.
Yes.
And the other 5 have the approach that Rita's taken. I'd rather you be on the meaningful roster, but no, I'm happy to stay home. Coming out of COVID, you need 7 staff. Are you going to call any of the other 5? You're going to recruit 2
Not
more?
a chance in hell.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's the tattoo we were talking about.
That's it.
The tattoo is gone.
They are digging their own grave.
Absolutely.
My God, whatever legislation is around JobKeeper and all that, we're never qualified for it.
Yeah, right.
So we're not bound by any of that stuff where we have to keep, You shudder to think, and Tio and I were talking about in the car, we do a lot of studying of human behaviour in our roles. It's what we do. I can't see, big fan of getting 1 + 1 = 2 or some sort of dot to join up.
Yep.
There's no way that dot ever gets joined. I don't see the end game. I don't see what we're trying to achieve here. I don't see where you see yourself in the next 6 months, 12 months. There's been no foresight put into some of their decisions whatsoever.
Yeah.
And they're making themselves unemployable. That's going to follow them around. That's a tattoo that's going to last a long, long time. But then to go back to Thomas's point before, what I want to say to anyone who's been forced to work full hours on JobKeeper wages and not getting any flexibility there. I'm hiring.
Yeah.
And if you would like to come and work,
that's a fair call too, mate. That's a fair call too.
Because I think that's garbage as well. The thing that's hurt me so much with some of the reaction that we're getting is we did everything in our power to make sure the people were looked after. When I reduced their hours and their wage, I upped their commission to match. We reduced to a level where the government would give you some money, and some of my guys ended up losing $80 to $100 a week instead of their entire wage.
Yeah.
Targets went down. If I'm lowering your hours of work and lowering your wage, I can't keep you on the same targets. That's not fair.
That's just. Yeah.
I will up your commission. So if you do work and if you do dare to work outside your 4-hour shift, you will get paid ridiculously.
Yeah.
Because we just didn't know what was coming.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel every employer, leader, and we'll use the term leader, and I think real leaders would have acted that way. People who didn't act that way fall into that boss category. And mate, the job ads are out there. We're everywhere. So if someone's forced you to work like that, give us a call.
We've got a good friend of ours, and talking about unjust employers, we've got a good friend of ours who's in the travel industry. And she's down to, I think, 3 days a week on JobSeeker. And her boss has said, I can't afford to pay you super and I can't afford to pay you the holiday pay and so forth. So don't complain after this goes back to normal because the business is closed down otherwise. Straight out to the employees. And I'm thinking, well, what sort of a boss is that not forecasting her team efficiently?
So we're getting to hear the truth from an employer, right? And about their integrity and their brand.
That tells you about their values and that tells you about their own tattoos, because just as much as an employee has got a tattoo, employees do have a tattoo as well, which is one of the things that we discussed on one of our podcasts earlier. COVID has done a lot. It has reset a lot of values for people. Like most people talk about, I value family, and like idiots, they're running around from 7 to 10 at night and they just run around 15 hours a day working. How can you say you value family more when your family may see just one or 2 hours? Now, so I think it has reset that. But it also actually identified bosses from leaders, like Cameron was talking about. People who actually would rather take advantage of the system than really try to make an income and make everyone profitable. But also it has identified bad employees from good employees. This is fantastic because I reckon in that respect, COVID is a cleaning virus.
Yeah. That's true.
I think the law of finding out someone's true colours in times of adversity doesn't discriminate between employer, husband, wife. It's the rule of life. Doesn't matter what position you're in, whether you're Prime Minister, whether you're Donald Trump, whether you're anybody, anyone can fake it until a worldwide pandemic happens. And then you find out exactly where everyone's at.
That's right.
Exactly.
And we even see it amongst our executive team. Who are those that come through and are humble and are measured in their decisions,
do more than they're
required
to,
and think out of the box and are able to adapt in a ever-changing environment. Mm-hmm. And those that are struggling, that have, we have one that has moved into management by fear and is really struggling and stressed and angry and emotional.
Yep.
So I'm doing a lot of work around emotional intelligence at the moment with the executive team, and remembering that, it's okay to feel what we feel. Remember to be aware of it and manage it.
Something like that, though, in that instance that you're describing, is more of a skill thing rather than a bad person thing, right? So we found out what's in people's core values. Yeah, but
it's always there, but it flares up in times of pandemic,
you've got to
right?
be pretty bloody cool, calm and collected to not have a moment of panic during what we've done. That doesn't make that person a bad person. What we are seeing, though, we are finding the bad from the good. And bad's a very general term.
Yeah.
But the fact that you're still willing to work with that person and try and coach them out of that situation means you obviously think their values are, or their inner person is worth working with. There's a difference between someone who's a young business owner or young to management or a first-time employees. This is your first job and you've run into bloody coronavirus. Like, Jesus Christ! You're supposed to go to Macca's and just serve soft serves
so hard.
You know what I mean?
This is where you see the cream rise to the top. I mean, I look at Alexander. I see him working to 11:30 every night. Like this morning, I saw him having his shower at 6:30 in the morning because he had to get onto work. And I think that this is where you see people rise to the top. Anyone who's going to look at employing people should ask, what did you do during COVID? Yeah. Oh, I slept longer. I had longer days and in my bed and blah, blah, blah. Do not touch them. You want the people who would talk about uplifting things and how they just went the extra mile for things. You want those guys like the Alexander who, all right, he likes to live. So when he's off, he goes and buy himself like nice steaks to eat. But you want people who are going to go out there and extend themselves.
Yeah.
Right? For Alex,
right.
It doesn't matter if you have to wake up at 4 and start doing things because the job has to be done.
Yeah.
And so I baited him this morning and I said, gee, man, that's a little bit harsh, having to work that late and you've got a pretty heavy schedule and you never get on with your schedule. I just wanted to test what his answer was. And he said, Dad, there is no schedule when it comes to work. You have to do whatever work is available until it's done. And I thought, yeah, you got a tick.
I tried to test him in another way on the weekend because we're trying to organise a few drinks for someone's birthday upcoming. And I said, mate, we're all staying up there on the Sunday night. Oh, I can't do that. Why? Got to work the Monday. Just have a day off, mate, because I'm the evil devil. No, there's no more having any more time off work. It was his answer straight away. And I thought, you make me sick, but two, good on you, brother.
Yeah.
You're passing up a beer for work. What are you doing? No, but I can back you up on that. You're not just talking from a proud dad point of view.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I spoke to an employee yesterday who is currently doing housekeeping and was a cook, a chef in the kitchen.
Wow.
And every time a staff passes, how are you? What's happening? He said, oh, I get up really early to come to work. I said, really? Where are you coming from? He said, I'm coming from the Blue Mountains and my alarm goes off at 4:00 in the morning to make sure that I'm here by 6.
Wow.
And I said to him, this talks about his integrity, right? He is an employee that we want to keep.
Absolutely. They become
the
pillars.
key talent.
Oh,
I was just in awe when he told me the story. And he's coming in and doing housekeeping rather than his usual job in the kitchen.
Yeah. And he'll work his way up. I don't know what the progression plan is in Accor, but he'll be able to work his way up at some point and he'll instill
That's
that
right.
He's someone who can build a business
You
around.
can travel through the world being a chef with Accor. You can travel through the world, basically.
And clean some bathrooms if needed.
And if he wants to clean some bathrooms along at the same time.
That work ethic should become
Absolutely.
infectious. And that's a culture that he'll be able to instill. And you can, we're talking about, you're talking big business. We're talking teams of 5 people, 10 people. But you can build a business around those type of people.
Absolutely.
And Thomas is right. Like apart from all the doom and gloom early on, I think there's been way more good coming out of this situation than bad.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean we're not frustrated with certain things, and sometimes you'll never cease to be amazed. Like just when you think you've got a handle on things, someone else will throw a spanner at you and you go, shit, didn't see that coming. But it's not even silver lining. I think more good than bad, I did an interview today and I was asked by the interviewee, she's got kids that are 14 and 11, if something comes up with the kids, am I able to take care of that? And I said, of course, kids before work always. We're family people.
First.
Oh, the last office I was at, no, I couldn't couldn't leave. I was told very, very succinctly that I was to stay in my chair and not leave until after work hour.
If your kid's got a runny nose, and it's a different story. If your kid's hurt itself,
But that business,
absolutely.
but that business is going to get left behind.
Yeah.
They're gone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Anyone who
100%.
works for a business like that, please
Call us.
get out of that office quick. You're in the wrong business. You're working with someone who couldn't give a shit about you. Get off your butt, run, and don't come back. Keep running like Forrest Gump.
And that talks to culture again, right? Talks to culture and how we treat people and our values.
The world's been going that way for a long time, and Thomas has been one to always. He's been trying to espouse it for a long time, but it took a global pandemic for a lot of people to see it. Well, not even see it, have it forced upon them. And all of a sudden, the staff are still doing the job, but they're at home some of the time, and they're still doing the job, but they're not stuck in their office chair for 8 hours a day. And that it should have forced all those leaders who were struggling to come to the new world, because it's been the new world for a while in that sense. Flexibility around work hours and job should have been the way for a little while now.
Yeah.
But it's now forced anyone who was a bit slow on the uptake into a position where why would anyone, forget the people who are refusing to come back to work, why would anyone now come to a job where that is the expectation? There's no flexibility around your hours. There's no flexibility around your home life. It's nothing but good to come out of it with bits of frustration and disappointment mixed in between. But they're all been valuable lessons.
Let me ask you something a little bit different and away from rugby here for a second.
Jesus Christ, man.
Why is
Talked
it that,
about his son for how long?
why? But it's about work. What is Accor doing for the moment, and why is it that guys like me or like Cam and Chris, why is it that we're not getting a cheaper room or maybe an invitation to something special that Accor is doing? What is Accor having some creative thinking in terms of what is it that we're doing to fill up the room? Sure, the room I'm sure has got a cost, and then we have a markup. What about we have less markup, but then we make sure that our entire staff's working because we have now come up with creative ideas about how to fill it up, such as inviting the next rugby league champion over to explain how his dad is cheering up from the sidelines, for example. And all the kids who've got rugby aspiration turns up with their parents, for example, for the weekend. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And we do have a marketing and sales team that is pitching
Yeah, well, they're not pitching to me.
initiatives to have teams come in, but again, we're in a precinct that is event, concert driven, right? While our borders stay closed, why would you come to a Sydney Olympic Park?
You've got to create
Sports.
the reason.
Right? Exactly. And that's what marketing and sales are focusing on now, because we could have the borders closed, they're saying, till at least the end of the year, beginning of next year. So we do need to have a look at our work differently and our operation differently to survive.
I'm
It's
just
a
going to
great
push
question.
it. I'm just going to push it. Why wasn't there a tennis camp organized with maybe people to give, respecting the wearing of masks, respecting social distancing, but why wasn't there one over the next 3 weeks? The kids are off.
Very good question.
Fight the marketing people. The marketing people are not working. Thank God Wine and Wisdom is around to come up with ideas.
But you raise a really good point, Cameron. The
Hey!
workforce is...
Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that.
It is
He's so
changed.
Love you.
Do you know what? Why can't employees work from home? Why can't students study remotely at university? This is exactly where we're moving in the future. It is going to be hard to refuse employees who can do their jobs at home to continue working from home.
Absolutely. That's the one thing that we know already. That is going to be on the increase. Employees working from home, absolutely. Meetings happening in the office, the rest, they work whatever they want to be doing. But you will always have leaders who have got inner demons of insecurity, who, because they are spending $100 on an employee, they want to make sure the employee is working 150. If it's 149, we've got a problem. Therefore, we will always have those kind of leaders who are so insecure, who want to see them, and that will never change. That's human nature.
Yeah. But then I say, how do we measure
Well,
productivity
it will change
and efficiency?
because it'll grow out. As those old leaders retire or move on to other things, the new people coming through are going to be in a
Natural evolution.
yeah. But it's years down the track, generation down the track probably. But yeah, I mean, I get what Thomas is saying about your job too. We saw restaurants have to come up with takeaway menus. We saw a lot of new businesses spring up out of this, and a lot of people thinking outside the box just to stay alive. If you're in an industry that, or your precinct is reliant on events, create an event.
Yeah.
You know, sponsor the tennis camp. He's just saying that. So Zara and Zoe, the next Williams sisters, have got somewhere to go.
No. I'm saying it because I know. If I said rugby, I couldn't give a crap, right? But if I knew there was a tennis camp organized that way, and it was over 5 days and 5 nights, and here's the room, and it will cost you only this much, and I'd be there. So I'm talking about from my own personal interest.
Yeah.
Like you with your son, if it was about rugby, and there was something like this, on top of it, that hotel is right where the Olympics happened.
Mate, I'd send the kids there for a week and they don't play tennis. Off you go. I can quickly get passionate about tennis again. You had lots of notes written down. I'm interested to see because I was warned that you had a few differences of opinion, so I want to know what they are.
Oh, well, where do we start? Let me go back to my notes.
I've got a question for you guys. I've got a question. This pandemic has created, obviously, as we've just spoken about, a culture of people that are comfortable to stay at home, receiving this JobKeeper, job seeker payment.
Yeah.
How moving forward? How are we going to? How's the transition? What's the transition? How are we going to get them motivated to go look for a job? Because I believe if you look at sort of for example, for an analogy, a bird in a nest. The mother bird pushes that bird out of the nest and makes it fly. As kids grow up, as parents, we go encourage our children to go out and seek job and be a contributing adult. What do we see moving forward? How are we going to change this?
Till they cut off the payments, it's probably not going to change a lot.
Okay, so it's the pain.
But I'm on the record of saying last week, I don't think they're cutting off the payments, mate.
I still disagree, but that's cool.
But the minute we did that podcast, he was out there saying we're reviewing it and it may change in form. There was no talk of stopping the payments.
Which is good. It means that ScoMo has been listening to our podcast before
that's
talking
exactly what
about
I was
this,
getting at.
Which is fantastic.
But no sooner had we said that than the language around stopping the payments ended, and it was we're going to change the payments and retest. They talk about retesting the JobKeeper, not getting rid of the JobKeeper. We could harp on forever about poor parenting and how you're letting your kids stay at home doing nothing and refusing work, but
they're adults now.
Yeah,
we get that. That's adults. But
well,
what do we do?
Mate, they're still kids, so they're making themselves unemployable. We're already working out the businesses can run a lot leaner than they probably have been. So where there was 50 jobs available, now you might only find 20.
That's a good point.
But I don't think that bodes well for the country either, because if they're not getting paid, they've already said, for one, they will be. Initially, they said they would never go back to the old dole as far as an amount. They've already said they will be cutting it back because they've realised doubling it was too much.
Yeah, that was the most stupid move.
Well, I think they did it for new unemployed, but they had to pay the old unemployed as well. So I don't know if it's so much of a transition period other than a whole lot of people waking up one day going, oh, fuck, I fucked up there.
Right.
And then,
So we do things for one reason, right? One of two reasons, pain or pleasure. So the pain will be too great for the majority of them, and they need to go out and search for that work, right?
But then in the meantime, if they've made themselves unemployable, because if smart employers are going, what'd you do during COVID? Mate, and that's the lack of thought. And that's where's a parent just saying, just think about this for 2 seconds. Sure, you might not want to work there anymore, but what are you going to do? What are you going to tell the next bloke who's interviewing you?
Yep.
And it's best to go out and get another job now, before the
100%.
demand hits, right?
Doing whatever, right?
Correct, because
Don't
once
wait till there's 300
JobKeeper,
applications
that's
again.
right. Once JobKeeper ends, and I think they will end up staggering it. That's my prediction. It won't be cut off completely for everyone at the same time, because that way it'll stagger it for industries, and it means that we will not have that high demand of people out there in the market looking for work at the same time, because that will cause absolute chaos.
Yeah.
Chaos.
Well, I think I agree with you, but I think that the first thing that needs to be done is the ATO needs to get rid of all the cash businesses. They now got their way into all of those businesses through JobKeepers, and I think it's time now. Cut them all off.
Half of Bankstown is closed.
And it's good because it means that there's going to be good people running businesses.
Yeah.
And, you go to Belgium, you go into a restaurant, whatever they charge, the minute they go enter and you're paying, that bill is sent to the ATO.
Wow.
Not a BTO, maybe Belgian tax office. And
All of a sudden,
not BYO.
Australia's got all Belgians' tax information.
Yeah, and so the minute they've done it, and over here, mate, there's people like selling 100 kebabs and they declare 3, and then when JobKeeper turned up, they suddenly have like 53 employees.
Yeah.
You know, and all with the same name. So we've got problems. Once they have it, get onto them. Shame them, name them, hang them, whatever we have to be doing. Get rid of them. The COVID-19 is not just about something that hits the elderly. The ATO, I hope you're listening to me. I'm clean. I have got no problem. If you want to come and run after me, no problem. Make sure you run after everybody else too. And this is the opportunity for COVID-19 through ATO to clean up the business in Australia. Yeah. You know, one of the things that my son shared with me quite a while ago, he said, you know, in Europe, the cash business is gone. Everything's on card, and he goes, and why are we still on cash? We should be a cashless country because once we have it, at least everything's declared, everything has... People have to pay their due.
It won't be long. I don't believe it'll be long before we are a cashless society. I give it another 10 years, mate. You'd be hard to pull money out of a wall. Seriously.
So you're happy with all your earthly belongings just being numbers on a computer screen?
Unfortunately, that's the way that the world's going to go. Am I happy with it or not? I think, but that's the way that society's going to go. Cam, is everything will be online, and cash itself will be just about almost a thing.
So we're working for numbers on a screen, mate.
But I also think handwriting is going to be a thing of a past too. I think handwriting will be a lost art in the next 10 to 20 years. It'll be all voice command keyboard. So I think that text, people have longer thumbs.
Yeah, that's a little less imposing than a cashless society.
No, I understand
the
that.
Ramifications of that.
You've got to look at the evolution of society. That will be the case. We've gone from a society that was shells and shiny stones through to now plastic cards and numbers on a keyboard.
Well, cashless society will be something we'll look at because George Floyd died because of cash.
Well, there you go. That's true.
If his $20 was through a credit card, George Floyd would still be alive.
Bloody monopoly money.
But because he turned up and gave them a fake $20, which he probably didn't even know, because who is stupid enough to go and give a fake $20 to a business that you go to all the time
and then hang around the front for half an hour
and then sit there for a
That's
cigarette?
right.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that anyway, that goes outside. We want to talk about that.
We're going back there.
We're going back to football.
Rugby, mate. Rugby league, mate.
Rugby league. Don't even call it rugby. Rugby's
Rugby
dying.
league.
So moving forward, so as I said, what do you think the solution is of getting these people back into work? It's going to be a matter of pain, is it? Do you think, fellas? It's going to be, and the boss lady, do you think it's going to be a matter of pain, or is there something the government or the society can do to help these people realise?
You're talking to a guy who's very Republican or liberal kind of, right? Me, I'd go, it's very simple. Stop the shit. Yeah. Right? And then you go back and then you sit in front of guys like me, and then we will interview you and we will want to know what you did during COVID. Yeah. Right? And then from there we go. And if you have to live with your parents for the rest of your life because you stuffed up, so be it. Or get off your ass now and go and do something meaningful with your life, so that when it's all finished, we all know that you've done something meaningful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think too they'll have to go out and search for jobs again and show evidence that they're looking for jobs and trying to get employment through the government.
Yeah.
Because that was the plan before JobSeeker. You had to be out there searching for work and recording that you're job seeking.
There's just not going to be any work for them, though.
And this is going to be
the ones
the
that
issue.
have stuffed up this time. The guys who have done the right thing this time will have no trouble getting a job, because the way the universe works is good things happen to good people, generally speaking.
Stuffed in the
Well said,
universe,
mate.
mate.
No,
I've
but
never met the universe. The universe doesn't give a shit about me.
It does, mate.
Right?
You're
The thing is, I truly believe that stop believing in the universe. You create your own destiny.
Right, that's exactly the same thing. If they're doing the right thing now, they're not going to have a problem in the future.
I don't want to create my destiny. I would love the universe to just give me a patch in in Bali and a lot of money in the bank account. I just want to.
You realise we just said exactly the same thing, but you're trying to make a point. If they do the right thing now, they're going to be fine getting a job in the future.
Yeah,
They're doing the wrong thing now. They've made themselves unemployable. There's going to be less jobs, right? Because along with cashless society is going to come automation of just about fucking everything, right? So if we want to go that far down the track, I don't know. I mean, the school of thought was before all this shit happened, at some point governments are going to have to start paying people to stay at home anyway because they're going to be less and less jobs.
that's right.
So,
That's
we're
right.
looking a long time into the future now, but I think the future's been sped up a lot by everything that's going on now. I don't have an answer to what are we going to do with those people and how are we going to get them back to work. I don't want them back in work.
Well,
if they're the type of people they are, they shouldn't deserve a job.
There is going to be a
deserve-
position somewhere for them. There will be those bad bosses that we talk about. Hope they find each other. The good employees and the good leaders find each other, and the bad employees and the bad bosses find
They
each other.
don't deserve to be taking money out of someone's pocket if that's how they've acted
Yeah.
now. So there shouldn't be a transition. Fuck them. Right?
Now you're talking, bro.
But I don't know what that does to the economy. I'm not smart enough to know what that does for society as a whole.
Yeah.
But fuck them, mate. Why do we want these people back in work? We don't.
You can't though. You can't. You will have to
Well,
reduce.
not physically fuck them.
You'll
but-
have to.
I know you can't do
thanks,
that.
Sam. Thanks. You will have to reduce job seeker. You'll have to reduce it back to what it was,
Yeah, but
and people will have to be forced to go and seek
100%
work.
agree. But they're not going to. They shouldn't be seeking work. They should be tattooed across their forehead. I stole off someone till it suited
Castrated
me.
and put in the gold mines.
It's a really bad wake-up call when that day arrives. It's going to be a really bad wake-up call.
All right, guys. What about a bit of spin busters now? What's going on the last 7 days? And we predicted a few things last 7 days. Did that happen? Did not happen? What's happened over the last 7 days?
Well, we talked about them stopping the payments, and straight afterwards they said, "Oh, we're not going to stop them. We're going to stagger them." We're getting closer on that one. My biggest thing of the week has been the job stuff.
Job stuff,
There hasn't
yeah,
been a
right.
lot else going on in the news that has brought my attention.
I think
quite
the
like
big
that.
thing in the news is what's happened in Melbourne, is the outbreak of. I think you've got more stats on this, Rita, don't you? I mean, like 451 new active cases in the last few days. We've got 20 hospitalised. We've got 4 intensive care.
So the army didn't stop it.
It wasn't the army.
Apparently, Corona can beat guns.
No, they brought the army in to stop it, not to distract them from all their corruption.
I told you
They-
last week it was not Daniel Andrews brought him in not to stop COVID. It was to stop any journalist talking about branch stacking.
Exactly.
You know, and the funny thing is, I heard Kevin Rudd, because at the moment...
Cameron
there's-
Rudd.
Faceless.
I said Kevin.
He's
not
talking
Kevin.
about
Sorry,
faceless.
sorry. I'm talking about ScoMo, Scott Morrison. Fucking Kevin Rudd. So bloody hell. Jeez. Only 2 bottles in. Scott Morrison, there's a by-election down in the area of around Bega at the moment. And he was on the TV, on the radio, talking about the corruption and the inquiry. So he's fed fuel to the fire, like we sort of said last week, that the Melbourne are going to implode themselves. The government's going to implode. So it's an easy victory for him in that sort of electorate. And he just basically turned around and fell into what we said. He said, Labor followers can obviously see that the Labor government is not doing the right job. They're corrupt, and it's a catastrophe, I think the word he used, within what's happening in the leadership in the Labor government at the moment. So we predicted that as well. We knew that he said he was going to follow something along those lines. But the outbreak in Melbourne itself, and you said that the government, drink up. You said the armies come in to try and stop it.
No, it was to keep people apart on the pokies is what they brought them in for.
Right. But where was the outbreak happen? Where did the outbreak happen?
In the suburbs, isn't it?
Oh, it happened in hotels.
Yeah.
It was in a hotel.
Oh,
with
in hotels with
cigarette
security
lighters.
Yes.
that were not appropriately trained, apparently.
And it was with cigarette lighters that were passing from one to another.
Sharing carpooling to and from
Mingling.
work as well.
Can I just say, and I can pretty much guarantee this won't be the popular opinion on this panel, but 451 cases in a whole state, who gives it?
That's
It's
us.
not an outbreak, mate. It's not a
Really?
wave. Really,
Really? With
Really?
that attitude?
really,
Cameron,
really. No, I'm
we've got to
serious.
put a stop to it, honestly.
Stop to what? There's more people with a frigging cold at the moment. How many kids are in intensive care at the moment with the flu? Bring up that stat. 450 people's a second wave. The first wave never finished, and out of 25 million people, 7,000 people got it.
You're obviously not panicking and buying toilet paper.
Fucking
Or
not a
pasta.
chance. And Thomas will say, oh, but you kept your mum away from your kids. Yeah, I did, because that was smart. Bringing in the army to stop people drinking schooners.
That's called double standards. I want my mum to be safe. Fuck the rest.
No, I didn't say fuck the rest. Are we panicking, or are we actually going to have a conversation because 450 people...
I get ya. Double standard.
Oh, mate.
You're one of those lizards with two faces, mate.
Would you be worried if it was in Sydney, in your suburb?
Not at all.
Testing van up the road?
Carry on.
Knocking on your door?
Probably
Why
more
are you
sales.
shouting into the microphone? I'd 100% be refusing tests like everyone else. Step away from the microphone.
So you would refuse a test?
Mate, I'm refusing everything from now on. If they try and shut us down again, I've already told Chad had to sign another piece of paper that said if they shut us down, Cam's going to refuse and get dragged away on a current affair. So we've signed that bit of paper as well to go with
My opinion is not of this man.
because they can't and I won't, and they've tried it once, and I'm off it. The idiots, mate, fancy hoarding toilet paper twice. Fancy hoarding toilet paper twice, you fucking
all right.
morons.
I
It
found
didn't
out-
happen the first time. But now,
I found out this morning our local servo has toilet paper. I'm good. We're good, Chris. We're good.
people who have hoarded
know,
it for the second time, they should have a genetic test and never be allowed breed again.
The
They
amazing
should not be
thing-
allowed to put human beings on the planet if you've gone and hoarded toilet paper twice.
You know what's
I
amazing?
didn't want to write it that strongly on the Facebook page, but now I'm saying it. You shouldn't be allowed to breed
If you hoard
you've
toilet
gone for toilet paper twice.
The amazing thing, people hoarding toilet paper across a border. So Melbourne's gone into lockdown and only some suburbs, but where we live in Menai, people are hoarding toilet paper. The shelves are almost empty. It's all like, you're idiots. Seriously?
One thing I didn't even think of is cleaning supply companies. I had dinner next to a guy a couple of weeks ago who I know from the area, and he owns a cleaning supply company. They got 48,000 rolls of toilet paper. We aren't going to run out. He said, I'm sitting there laughing, mate.
Apart from the fact that he's just bought his new penthouse overlooking Sydney Harbour.
Oh, well, he just said, just call me. He said, if we run out,
It's
just
crazy.
call me.
It is crazy. It is crazy. All right. So the third bottle of wine, what do we got here? Actually,
That is a weird bottle.
this little bottle I've seen on shelves quite a number of times and never bought it, but today it stopped me. It's called Little Giant, and it's a Cabernet from Coonawarra, and it didn't have a lot of markings in the fact of an actual vineyard. So I looked into it, and it's created by a company called Fourth Wave Wines. Now, what they are is they're a marketing company. They're a marketing company that go and find niche areas within an industry and create a product there. So they've got a organic wine called Bumblebee. They've got, you might have seen them, wine in a can now. They can get wine in a can. They've done those. So I don't have very high aspirations for the actual value
The more
of
he
the
talks, the
wine.
more worried I get.
I don't have high aspirations for the
Nothing
value
like
of the
a
wine.
wine made from Scotty from
However,
Mark.
it does come from the Coonawarra region. Apparently, they go out and source the wine. It comes from 2 vineyards. They go and source the wine. The label and the bottle itself, I think, is a beautiful. It's called Little Giant. It's got a wombat on the cover, and the way they market it is very clever. So hopefully, the wine itself sticks up to the marketing they've done for it.
I guarantee you, anyone drinking wine from a can is hoarding toilet paper. It's a lay down
probably
misère,
right,
mate.
What about wine with
You
a
know what
wombat?
I reckon should be in a can? Wine.
Well, we
little bit, mate.
all of our bottles today have been from South Australia, 2 different regions. Let's have a look. But Cabernet from Coonawarra, you couldn't pick a better one. So that's going to be very dangerous to my bottle.
I don't know, man. It's got a wombat on
Designed
the cover.
by a
I
market.
Yeah.
don't know.
Let's try
Let's see
this.
how we go. Got a nice colour to it. Deep, rich
Cheers.
colour.
Actually, beautiful aroma. Oh, let's try it.
It's actually
Wow.
bloody good.
Wow.
It's actually bloody good. Hasn't got the depth of yours, but that's a bloody good wine.
Yeah, no,
They've written 18 on it.
I think it's I think that's the way they've done the labels. It looks like pen, but it's on the back too. 750 mil
An 18.
and 18. It's all in the print, but yeah,
Might have
very
been best
clever,
till
very
last.
clever marketing. You know, Thomas, last week we're talking about you said chinking the wine, it comes down to including the sound.
Yeah.
I thought, that doesn't sound right. I think you're full of it. So I looked a little bit deeper and I did find that analogy, but also found that in the time of medieval times, you would clink the wine to possibly share into each other's glass to show that the wine wasn't poisoned. Because back then, if you've watched Game of Thrones, there's a lot of poisoning and killing off people and so forth, because it was very hard to prove that you poisoned someone. So people used to clink their glasses and tip wine into each other's glass to prove it wasn't poisoned.
They used to drink it out of mugs, so it was...
There you go.
Hurrah.
And then I looked into the word toast, when you have a toast.
Right.
And I thought, why the hell do we say, let's have a toast?
Yeah.
And I found out that in the early, 1500s, whatever it was, the wine wasn't very good flavour. So what they would put spiced toast into the wine and then eat the toast that was soaked up with the wine, which the bread back then was very stale and very thick. And then they'd eat the toast as a part of a celebration. So there you go.
You've done some research this week, bro.
It wasn't
What's
that hard.
going
Just Google it, man. Everything comes up.
His wife was coming on, mate. He's
Actually, talked about Google. Did you Google that Virginie Delalande I put on Facebook yesterday?
No, I didn't.
We're not meant to be using Google anymore, guys. DuckDuckGo.
I did DuckDuckGo for the unemployment news. I did actually use DuckDuckGo for. So share with us.
Virginie Delalande. Did you see it?
No, I didn't see it.
You boys are really full of shit.
Been
Yeah,
working
you
for
call
me.
yourself my freaking brothers. Forget it. Virginie Delalande is a young. She's 40 this year. But she was born mute and deaf. Partially, like really heavily deaf. And she had to go through some therapy 3 days a week for 20 years. And there was she speaks French, so when you get onto Google or YouTube and watch some of her stuff, and she said she grew up people calling her weird because obviously she couldn't pronounce the right sound. How can you pronounce a sound you never heard?
Right.
And then she had a problem with pronouncing, because how do you pronounce even if you heard a little bit of it? How can it be that accurate? And when she was 20, people said no one would want to marry someone like this, can't even talk properly, and blah, blah, blah. And today, at the age of 40, the lady is married, happily married, with 2 children, and she's the first lawyer ever to graduate in France.
Wow.
A lawyer.
Wow.
So it's not even someone who's just finished schooling.
You mean first deaf lawyer or first?
Yeah, first deaf lawyer.
Oh, wow.
And to me, that's just an amazing thing. And I watched that because I always like to inspire myself with things. And the way you inspire yourself is look at the people who have less than you, but have achieved way more. Because then you have no more excuses. And you watch someone like that, and you say to yourself, don't you ever catch another excuse that you didn't know, you were not born here, English was not your mother tongue, because that's a woman who couldn't even speak.
Yeah, right. Wow.
Anyway, that's about Google. Anyway, let's go back
I did
to
see your post.
Was that on one? Did you put it on Wine and Wisdom?
No, it was
No,
on
it was on his own.
On Teal, right? Okay.
I saw it and I couldn't pronounce the name he wrote, so I didn't Google it.
Virginie Delalande.
I saw it and I was busy doing the house.
I received it from my father-in-law.
taking care of the kids and.
Send it to me.
Yeah, so watch that, show people, and I think that that's something that a lot of people don't do. One of the things I was talking to an old friend I met with this morning in Hornsby, and I was saying to her, in life you have to. I was talking about the SMS last week when I was on Tom Panos. It's one thing to have the skill in life. Knowing how to do your craft and doing it until you reach mastery, it's a must. But still calls skill. It's another thing to have mindset. And mindset does not mean being positive. I was saying to her this morning, I said, a lot of people think that when you talk mindset, it means being positive. No, mindset is when you feel anxious, how do you overcome that? When you're feeling, when fear is starting to attack you, how do you build a wall against that? Those are the things that are part of mindset. then I was saying to her, until you really have soul, the third element of SMS, the soul, the self, it doesn't matter how much skill or mindset you have, you will always break down. That's why there are people who, in terms of skill, become like the biggest singer on the planet or the best poet. They have great mindset where they have maybe controlled some of their anxiety and still commit suicide because their self was not there. The self was not there to allow them to really rest on the first two. And so I do a lot of singing to develop myself. And one of the podcasts I did was with Danny Andrea, who lives in America. You watch this woman and you can see a woman who had gone through a lot of issues in her life and through singing is shining through, And I think that's what we need to be doing. In times of COVID right now, whether you are working in a hotel and you've been laid off or whether you're working in another industry and you've been laid off, it's a time for you to find yourself so that you understand that the things that happen to us are not always bad. They may be a trampoline to something better, but we have to find that meaning.
That's good. I found that interview that you had with Danny was a beautiful part from that podcast was that fact that she's giving so much back now. So she's come back and she's gone back to the hall where she did the first where she did her first singing lessons.
Yeah.
Now she's giving singing lessons to people who've never sung before, but they want to.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And she goes, I don't care if you're bad. I don't care if you're good. Just sing. And the excitement in her voice during that podcast to sing, to talk about her giving back to people, where it originated for her. And she tells a story of her mum, I think, bringing her as a baby and playing the piano in that very hall. Mm-hmm. I think they give that back. I think it was a beautiful podcast too.
Yeah, and you could see, I mean, she's not running away from anything. Some people, they run away from stuff in order to find something else. But you know what? They find the same shit, different place. Yeah. Right? She confronted her own demons, dealt with whatever was given to her right there and then. And today you look at the woman, she's different. I can still see times when the demon's back in her life. I can see it. During the podcast, I could see some of the stuff. But at least you're working on it. No one is free from demons.
So that time that we have now, Thomas, you're talking about having the time during COVID, past or present, whatever it may be. Are we looking at really finding our true core values and living to those values? Is that what we need to be doing?
I think that most people have found their true core values. I think that COVID gave people the opportunity to put into practice their true core values.
Right.
The people whose value were family really put their family first.
Right.
The people who their true core value is about me, myself, and I found a way to find me, myself, and I during COVID. Yeah. So the COVID was nothing else but a reset of our values.
Okay. Do you think there's an amount of people that still live by, I think you call it their eulogy values? They still live by their eulogy values and don't have that realization of their actually true core values. Okay, what is it when
your wished
values? Is it wished values?
So you have to be very careful because everyone wants to find the eulogy values.
So what's the other values that you would like everyone to look at you by? What was that one? Your wished values.
Wished values. I wish I was all about family.
Right.
Because that's what people will think good of me if I put family as my number one value.
You're right.
People will look better at me.
Yeah.
So I'm struggling to remember the other word. It's wished versus acted on.
It's beautiful when you have a look how most of us, we live a life and that is so far away from our true values.
Yeah.
And we have to think, at the end of the day, are they going to talk about the values that we really are, or are they going to talk about the values that we pretend and show?
We've been put under that much adversity recently that people could only fake it for a little while before their true values came out.
That's a good point, Cam.
I think there might have been a week or two or maybe even lasted a month where you were still living your wished values and trying to put on a good show. But isolation, there's a reason that solitary confinement sends people batshit crazy. You can't, we're not designed to do it. So the isolation, the different living standards, the different work conditions, all that stuff, it didn't matter how much you were trying to fake it, we ended up seeing on almost every level where people's true values lied. So I don't think it was about finding them. I think now it's a realisation that, hang on, these are actually my values and everyone's seen those. So going back to doing your wished values probably isn't going to fly in general, and use that as an opportunity to embrace yourself and stop pretending. Realise that we've all seen your true colours now. Just be you.
Yeah. I was talking to a leader lately, and he said, it was amazing to see a person hanging around you, Thomas, and they came back to the office so happy. And for me, it was very much, I didn't really want to say, because sometimes you don't say things to people for two reasons. One, to hurt them. Number two, to belittle them. For me, deep inside, I was thinking the reason the person was happy after a day well spent around me was that because I'm authentic. What I do is who I am, and I just live that way, And that person can see that in the end, the way that I relate to them is based on true relationship, where that person was probably seeing their leaders as it's always what's in it for their leader first.
Yeah, right.
It's never for them first. Therefore, when they are in a relationship with that leader, there is always a filter. There's always something that is in between the two of them. And maybe that's the one thing that needs to change. Now, the question is, how do I remove my filters so that when I'm relating to the person, they see the true me?
The weak-minded will judge you based on one page of the book instead of the entire novel, and that's
nice.
You like that? I just came up with that.
Did you make that or did you read that? 'Cause I might actually have to write that down.
And that is so true.
Might have to write that down.
You literally
Actually,
just
might have to
thought
write
of
that down.
Like if
Give
I
him
was-
some more to drink. The guy is good.
No,
the guy
no,
gets good with this.
No. If I was to judge TL on certain pages of the book, we've had some mad blow-ups.
And you realised you were wrong.
Hey, no. I was waiting for his ego to calm down long enough to call me. No, but I'm in the same category as 99% of the things I do. Well, everything I do is with the best of intention. About 40% of it's done with the right delivery. I just don't have it. And you say, we've got to remove those filters. Don't remove too many filters. You still need a filter between brain and mouth sometimes. But you sit there and wonder sometimes, you go, you've read, it's a 400-page book, you've read 399 pages and you fucking loved it. One page annoyed you and all of a sudden it's undone 399 pages. And I don't think it's something we need to work on, and it's something that you can blame on your upbringing or your set of standards, but it's also something that the person on the other end of it, grow up might be too harsh, but need to fucking grow up or stop and think, go, hang on, what's the body of work here? What's the form guide? Is this...
But that's coming back to critical thinking, my friend.
No, that's not critical, but you're never going to advance in life.
You've got to pause and think more deeply about that situation you're in. Exactly.
You yelled at me 2 weeks ago. You've never yelled at me before. If I was to hold that against you, mate, we'd be done.
Mate, trust me, I'm Italian. If I was told to someone every time they yelled at me, I'd have no friends ever.
Because you swallowed a microphone.
Yeah, but you see, me, I've learned that loneliness can be by yourself in a room. You can be alone and never feel lonely. Or you can be in a crowd and be very lonely, you see?
Yeah. What I'm getting at is those feelings of... you were saying before about judging someone instantly or being upset by one page is not seeing the bigger picture. And I think the media, and what we were saying before, is the media jumps on that fact about human nature. We always go to the negative. It's our survival instinct. From what I understand, the psychology of man from caveman time is when we were cavemen, we'd go down the watering hole to take a drink or collect berries, and a freaking saber-toothed tiger would jump over and kill someone. We go, we're not going back to that fucking watering hole. We always go to the negative. It's a survival instinct.
And it's brought into us to do to other people. And Thomas, I don't think he's joking about the rugby league. I think he thinks he's serious about it. But you only ever hear bad things about rugby league players. You won't ever hear anything good. And
what's good about rugby players?
Oh, mate, the work they do in the community, the work they do for underprivileged kids, the work the Aboriginal players are doing in the Aboriginal communities.
I did talk about that.
Look, exactly right. How many players are in the league?
Then we're conditioned to jump on someone as soon as they fuck up instead of going, oh, hang on, the bloke's done 99 good things.
Right,
Let's not crucify him over the 100th thing.
Yeah, I mean, he only branch stacked 45,000 people, not 43,000. So it was like,
And it's an education
those
thing.
aren't
but
true
then,
figures, guys. So.
like, you get to a point then, if people are going to keep doing that, they're not the people you want around you anyway.
Yeah.
I think you're right, though. I think it's so important to not stay on the negative. We are, as humans, moved to negative.
You've never made a mistake, Rita. It's okay.
Really? I've made many mistakes, Cam.
Oh, really? I haven't
Many
seen one, baby.
mistakes. That's part of development and growth. But look, you do go to negative, but it's about how long you stay negative. To be aware and then move over to positive is the key.
Yeah.
And you've got to judge the situation, not the person.
I think the point is we all need to be authentic, and if there's authentic, there'll be trust in relationships, but then that trust can't be abused by you're okay when he's being authentic in the good. You can't be not okay with it being authentic in the bad, in air quotes, because I don't think telling someone what you think of them is bad, but people put that in the bad basket.
Yeah.
But is
So hold on. What are you trying to say? That it's best to be authentic than to be uplifting?
If uplifting's not your true self, we all need work, right? But you've still got to be who you are at any given point in time.
That's right.
We should
Be
always,
authentic.
of course, we should always be trying to uplift people. That doesn't mean lie.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean.
No, but the problem is that a lot of people are using, I just want to be honest with myself, be authentic, as a lousy and lazy and cop-out
Mechanism to keep
way
people.
for not improving, for not becoming better, for not chasing a better version of themselves.
Yeah, no. So being authentic, you're supposed to try and improve every day. You want to wake up tomorrow trying to be better than you were the day before. So, what day is it? Thursday.
All day.
Authentic Cameron Thursday should be different to authentic Cameron Friday in that sort of essence. You've always got to be true to yourself, but you're always going to be at different levels. True to yourself doesn't mean stay on the same level.
Yeah, but listening to you right now, I'm seeing the same authentic version of Cameron 2018. So what does it make?
Well, that's
the
not very
last 2
nice,
years?
mate. I don't like you when you're so transparent. And authentic. You've really hurt my feelings, and I can't be here anymore.
I'm very sorry. I was
But I
being
still want
authentic.
full pay. All right?
That's
And
right.
there's
You won't
the
get the new
judgment.
wine either, mate. So.
Mate, I've put on at least 15 kilos since 2018, so I know you're full of shit. You're not looking at the same person at all.
You look at him and his mates.
It is true. I was lying. I was trying to see you better than what.
But you're right on what you're saying, Cam. Is you're saying that those who are around you.
I used to use that. I used to use it's just who I am to not change.
Yeah. That's a cop-out, isn't it?
It's 100% a copy out because I was a fucking arsehole. Now I'm somewhere between fucking arsehole and
Half decent.
half decent. There's lines, and sometimes we fall back down, and we've talked
So
about.
where's the position between fucking and asshole?
That's the gooch.
I've got too many lines for that. I'm not going to say anything.
That's clinically known as the gooch, mate. That little area between the anus and the.
Yeah. So
There's blokes that have just been themselves and get to 70 and realise, we talked about eulogies, that no one's at their funeral
yeah.
because I'm just being me. But being me doesn't mean you don't have to change and try and improve yourself as a human being.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're true, Ken. But by the same token, your mates around you need to look at you at certain times and go, look, you know what, he's not his best form. We still love him. He's on great form. We still love him. True or true. Yeah? And be able to pull your side and say, mate, you know, that wasn't right or that was right and so
Well,
forth.
it's the same thing. You can't, if they're your
But I'll
mates,
tell you
they're not
something for
reading
yourself.
one page of the book.
Something
I like
you wouldn't
it
have done
with-
12 months ago, you wouldn't have apologised for anything you said. You would have said, fuck you, that's my opinion.
When did I apologise?
Well, I won't go into details, all
No,
right?
it's not apologize a lot. You apologize.
Yeah, no.
You with me?
Yeah.
And I think that's a beautiful thing, and you've grown a lot that way, mate, outstandingly. But we need to see that the post, like Rita said before, both the positive and negatives of everyone, and say, you know what, we have our good and our bad days, and try and live to the better version of ourselves. What does it say?
I used to be a fiend for it, mate. I could have the best friendships in the world, and someone
destroy
does one fucking thing wrong, and I'm like, you're dead to me.
Yeah, it's
You know, I brushed a good mate once because he didn't invite me to his birthday party because none of his other mates liked me because I was a fuckwit. I'm like, you're my best friend in the whole world. I'm never going to talk to you again.
Yeah, but
You know,
but
that's-
what is best friends meant to be doing?
Well, he should have rang me instead of text messaged me. But apart from
you should
that,
have rang and said, all my
apart
other
from
mates
that, he
think
was
you're a
100%.
fuckwit.
No, apart from that, he was 100% right. You know.
Yeah.
And so
There's the lesson learned.
Yeah, we're speaking again now. It took 10 years, but again, that's a me. But that's a growth thing.
But also, Cam, you don't sugarcoat anything, right? And we've had this conversation podcasts ago that you don't sugarcoat information. So if anyone's out there that wants to call Cam and get some information, seriously, and some help, you don't, mate. You don't sugarcoat things and give them the nice, easy way out for people.
But there are ways, and sometimes places where it should be sugarcoated, not to the detriment of the message. And it's something I'm working with the big fella on at the moment.
Eloquently enhanced. Maybe you speak
with kindness. Walk
That's
with
right.
Speak to Rita. She may be able to help you with that.
Diplomatic words,
What do you mean by about don't drink so much, baby? Oh, right.
No, there's a line that I've taught one of my first
walk.
trainers, and I shared with my mate Cam here, and I said, sometimes we just need to give up the need to be right for the sake of the need to be nice. I think that's something that if we all did, we probably would foster a better place. There are people who are opening their mouth and all that they want to do is just to be right. There are people that open their mouth and all that they do has to be stirring the shit out of the environment they're around or people around them. It never hit them that maybe it would be nice to go for making the place a better place, to uplift it. And I always say that in the end, we talk it karma, I don't call it karma. Their world, their place is a shit place to be, where they go from happiness, like fleeting moments of happiness where maybe family gatherings bring a little bit of happiness, to another moment, not permanent happiness. And I think that true happiness, whether you are working during COVID time or whether you've been laid off, true happiness actually does not have to rely on the external world. Does not have to rely on family gatherings or fleeting moments of happiness. True happiness happens no matter the condition. I notice you take a lot of notes. What are you doing, Rita? Are you sending it to the police?
She's folding the pages in half, so she's not wasting trees.
I'm very reflective, so I like to go back and read notes.
Oh,
Yeah.
See, I
guess
like what you're doing.
I guess it's not a case of sugarcoating, Chris, so it's gift wrapping that could be done better. I look back on some of our conversations, there's things where I didn't, I could have said it different. I'd never wanted the point.
Mate,
want the point to change.
In saying that though, for me, and I'm slow on the uptake, and I always say this, sometimes a message needs to be pounded in with a baseball bat, right? For me to get the message. And some of the conversations we've had are some of the best conversations, most valuable, not the best, most valuable I've had, because the information inside that message was what I needed to fucking hear.
But you've also said you've walked away and gone, why the fuck would he say that? And
But I've analysed it.
Yeah, but you've spent a couple of weeks dwelling on it, where if I could have said it differently, you maybe wouldn't have spent 3 weeks in denial.
But is that you or not me?
Well, it's a mixture of both.
Okay, but regardless, the message got through. And that's what I see, mate.
If my job is to give advice or convey a message, depending on the type of conversation, if that advice leaves someone hugging themselves in a corner for 4 weeks instead of getting that message across, then there's a little bit of column A and column B. Column A, I've said it wrong. Column B, you've taken it wrong.
I didn't take it. I don't think I took anything wrong. I think it was along the lines of, okay, there's a message in there. What is it that I'm missing, or why would have you said it that way? And it's not for the sake of how you said it. It's of what you said. Yeah. I'm trying to extract that message, the true message. I think some people who took it the wrong way and then curl themselves up in the corner, they're not ready for the message. They're not those critical thinkers that we're talking about.
Sometimes, or I've said it wrong. We can admit that things. When I'm fuck up, I'm used to being told I've fucked up.
Yeah.
So to me, if someone's fucked up or I think someone's fucking up, I say, mate, you fucked up.
Yeah.
It's been a very long, painful lesson that you can't just tell people they're fucked up, apparently.
Yeah.
I think it's a shit way to go.
I don't agree with it. We're living in nanny state and all that sort of stuff. Absolutely.
I don't agree with it, but it's also something that from the stories I hear about TL in younger days to TL now, you've had to learn too that you can't just tell everyone they're fucked up.
I still fucking tell them.
Yeah, you still tell them, but how you tell them.
And if
I literally say, you're fucked up. There's got to be another word in there somewhere.
Last weekend, you were privy to seeing like someone disrespecting my house, and I fucking just
I loved it.
do what I do.
We had that conversation afterwards. I was like, oh my God.
I hope that wasn't me, Thomas.
I know. I have no restraint about that because that is authentic me.
Yeah.
If I went to your place and you had some certain rules, I would respect the rules of the house. And me, mates, friends, whoever it is, if you come to my place, there are some rules. You don't respect it, I'll fucking get into you. That's how I am. You don't like it. Well, it's too bad.
But in your own house, you can do that. And in your own house, the consequences.
But that's what I said, isn't it? It's when I go to someone's place, I follow the rules of the house.
Yeah, but you follow the rules of the house. So, but in our offices or in our businesses,
it's the rules of the house.
Yes, but you still can't convey the rules
way you
can in your own house. You can't.
No, you can, but it's about the words.
I cannot. No, that's what I'm saying. So you
It's
can't
about
convey
the
it the same way.
It is. Well, you can. It's about the choice of the words.
But that's not conveying in the same way. Me saying, fucking told you not to wear shoes on the carpet. Now there's mud everywhere. Fucking blah, blah, blah is different to, next time, could you please, possibly, if it doesn't hurt your feelings, just, maybe.
And if you don't, there'll be this consequence.
Or there's a broom and cloth and bucket. Go and clean your mess up.
Sometimes in a business sense and in the relationship between employer and employee, you feel like you're in that position where you can't tell someone not to wear their shoes.
Yeah, but that's not. We were not just talking about employee or anything. And I think even if it is employee, I would rather an employee just leave than hang around like a bad smell because they have bad values. And if a friend of mine was being disrespectful in my house, I would expect that the friend of mine would come and apologize. That's how I believe. If you've done something wrong, think about this and then make the thing. You make the time. If I was at your house like around Christmas and I had wronged you and I knew that I wronged you, I would do that. And I think that this is what people have to be doing. I would like to ask you, what if now some people were listening and working for Accor and decided to call you and apologize for what they've done? What would you do from here on? I mean, which basket do they go into? Is there a third basket being created, which is first basket, the right people who did the right things at the first time?
No, they're meaningful.
Meaningful roster.
Meaningful roster, yes.
But do you have a not so meaningful roster for the second group, the people who are...
They're people that, they've
roster.
gone above and beyond, haven't they? They've gone above and beyond to move from where they were to a new place.
I like it.
Yes, you're right. You do need to look at them with new eyes.
But what basket do they go into?
And,
because if trust is broken or...
Yeah, but I wouldn't be surprised that through this, Cam, we will have people that will call and say, you know what, in hindsight, I should have taken that job. But Rita, at the time... this is what I was going through in my family, and I want to just explain that to you. And I know I'm an optimist, Cam, when I say this.
She's a beautiful person.
There is a story behind every person, and I know those conversations will come.
Yeah, but that phone call happens the day after their welfare payments get cut off. You know what? I've just had a realisation that I was wrong, and I'm so sorry. Please take me back.
Because I'm broke.
And you know what I would be saying? As soon as a position becomes available, we will consider you. But right now, there may not be one for you because you weren't on the meaningful roster back when I called you. And I'm so sorry.
And things do change, isn't it? I mean, one of the things is that Cameron is, in terms of empathy, is not very high. So I wouldn't refer to Cameron. But really, I know what you've gone through. And one of the reasons I actually had asked you to be on a podcast was not mainly because you are a head of HR at the Accor Group, which is the one thing that Cameron sort of said, it would be great. For me, it was mainly because about in August or September last year, you were dealt with by a company you gave blood, soul, and everything to in a way that is so disrespectful that in many ways you probably could have gone two ways. Either have your soul and yourself totally destroyed and lose total faith in the human spirit. But on the other hand, you did different. You actually rose like a phoenix and became actually an even better HR now for the Accor Group, correct?
That's true, Thomas. I didn't think this was going to come up today.
So would you like, listen, I always have set up kind of questions and that's why I don't ask all the question I'm going to ask, but things happens. And would you like to share with us about your transition about you now as an employee? It's not COVID, but you might as well have gone through COVID, really. Have gone through and giving everything to a company that actually turned around and did a very snaky thing. But instead of you going through, I don't trust anyone anymore in life, I don't want to see the goodness in people anymore, to actually you rising.
Oh, I have to thank, my beautiful husband, first of all, who loves me and my family. But you know what, Thomas? I think it comes down to all of that personal work that you do on yourself, waiting for that critical day when you have to pick yourself up, brush yourself off and say, you're going to be okay.
Yep.
It's all going to be absolutely fine. And you know what I did? I put together a routine. I was going to look after my family, my main goal, look after my health and fitness, and get back on the bandwagon and find my next career move. And that's what I did. I put a structure together, and every day, Chris knows, I lived by the structure. Drove the kids to school, went to the beach, ran for an hour, bought great healthy food, and went online and looked for that job and rang and made phone calls after phone calls after phone calls and relied on the people that loved you. And you have to forgive. You have to forgive and see it for what it is. The reality is the business makes a business decision. And I have seen so many of them in my career being in HR. But when it hits you and it comes to you, you're right, you can take the wrong road.
Yeah.
And you can say to yourself, that's it, I'm done, I'm not trusting, I'm not going
to ask her who it is, but who's that fucker?
I am not. I'm not going to go to that road. What I will say to you today is that I have learned a valuable lesson going through that process, and I know how to pick myself up.
So what is the lesson?
And how to move forward.
Eat steak.
What is the lesson?
It's focusing on your values and your goals.
So are you saying to me that you worked so hard and you gave 100% to a company that you did not know, did not embrace your values?
True. In the end. But you've got to move forward. You've got to shut that chapter, close it, go through the awareness and the feelings, because I was cut. I was absolutely at my lowest point.
Yes.
Absolutely cut. You have to go through and feel those emotions. And then there's a point where you have to say, right, what's next? How do I close that chapter, learn the lessons and move forward? Because I've got a lot to live for, a lot of love, a great family and a great career ahead. So I've just got to find that next move.
Yes,
that's beautiful.
Yes. You came out like so much stronger. I think that the company that did that to you, the person who was responsible for doing that, ought to be fired, because they obviously not only are not espousing the values, but they have lost a person that was way more valuable than themselves. But what would be some of the lessons that you would say you learned from that episode?
You know, I keep going back and saying to myself, what would I have done differently if I could go back and do it again? Nothing. Yeah. Nothing. I had such passion.
But what about the lesson?
Connection with people. Mm-hmm. And, you know, there's no blood. There's no bad blood. You can't hold on to bad blood. That's only going to make me sick, and it's going to manifest with my family. Yeah. Right? And the people I love. It's not going to hurt anyone. So you've got to release all of that. And I think the lesson is get ready for the next challenge, because there will be another one. And guess what? You'll be stronger, fitter, and fighting coming out of that next challenge. And here's COVID. And here I am. None of us thought we'd be going through COVID. And when I sit and think of COVID, I think, hey, I've gone through tough shit. I just went through it last year. Yeah. I'm good. I'm good for this. I'm good for this next challenge. Yeah. You know? And for me, it is about people and my family. Connect even stronger. Learn even more from people. And just huddle with people. Because those people that really value you and love you will be there. Yep. They'll be there.
At its most base point, it's another universal law of fight or flight. You've chosen to fight, but in the most gentle, forgiving, loving way possible. Like TL saying he'd kill him, you're on the opposite end of that spectrum.
And you know what? It's come from great grounding. I think when you know yourself and you accept yourself and you love yourself, you're going to go there. You're going to feel the pain and you're going to pick yourself up and keep moving forward.
Well, the other option's not acceptable. That's the point of it. The other option, flight, is never the right answer. It doesn't matter what shit that happens, you only have two responses. And fight can fall into many different categories. There's levels of fight. It doesn't have to be an angry term or a combative term, but you fight. Otherwise you...
You know, I'll share something a little bit out of school here, actually really in school.
Husband, by the way.
So when that happened, Rita was giving a lot of hours into the business, working at home. She'd come home at 6, would do the family thing, 9, 10 o'clock at night, back onto working till 1 a.m, back to work at 6 o'clock. And she was doing that often. And she walks in and people, to speak frankly, she was made redundant after she had made quite a few people in that business redundant. So my first instinct was, fuck them, take them for what, get whatever you can. Rita was like, leave her with me. So I left her with her. I trust her implicitly. So she did, and it all calmed down, and she went and sent, I don't know how many job applications out from that time. How many was it before you got this one?
29.
Right, 29 job applications.
I didn't see it come across my desk.
And she
Do you have
got
a
this
job for me?
Now the people that, the company that stood her down or who made her redundant at that time has now basically sacked all their staff. They've got skeleton staff, and they're all asking, because it's a quite a close-knit community. People talk within those businesses, and they're, well, how's Rita? Well, Rita's fine.
Which is good. And now that there's no more international student, they're probably going to go broke. And that's
right.
great for them, because that's karma for your shit, your little piece of shit company that does not know how to look after your own people. You do not deserve international student. I mean, I don't know which company that is. I just want to say it. You do not deserve that shit. But it's only...
Thomas, forgive, move on.
No. I think you...
That's karma. It is.
I believe in this, right? God gave us 2 ears, 2 eyes, every 2 arms.
Doesn't believe in the universe.
But I forgive twice, third time you kill. Because God would have given you more ears, more arms if there was more. It's just 2. Right? So sometimes you
Sounds like the bloke on the door of Noah's Ark.
He means
2, you idiots, not 3.
He means 2 dozen, darling. 2 dozen times you have to forgive. 2 dozen, all right? Don't listen to him. It's 2 dozen.
Listen, you've been a very good guest. I'd love to have you back, because I think that there's a lot of other issues that we'd like to go through with you, and I think you bring a lot of intelligence to our discussions.
For the first time.
I was only looking at you. I was not even talking about you. But so why don't you just close today's podcast?
Wow.
What would you say
thank you.
to close today's podcast?
Well, I want to thank the 3 of you. It's been a pleasure sitting here and being in your presence. And to close the podcast, what I do want to say is it is a long journey. Our lives are a long journey. And coming through COVID, Cam, what you said, one of the things you said, you do go back to basics and have to get to know who you are, right? And that, to me, is probably one of the most profound things that we need to focus on. It's who we are as people. And when we've developed a level of strength with our soul, as you've said, Thomas, you've really got to know your soul, then you've got a foundation there. You've got a foundation there, and you're going to come out of this okay. It's going to be fine.
Very nice.
When we look at our people, the people we work with, our family, we're coming back down to basics.
Yep.
Right? Love, connection, and relationships. And again, isn't that the foundation of who we are?
Nice.
Whether it's in the workplace or at home. So key.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for being around. And I agree with you. Every single time I look at Cam, I go back to the basics.
Caveman basics.
I do. Thank you very much for closing. Boys, Rita, thank you so much for today.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Thanks, babes.
See you later.
Thank you. Bye.